Where are you? Are you sat in your car or on the bus making your commute to work? Just got home from dropping the children off at school. Or perhaps it's coming to the end of the day, you're doing those chores and settling down for the evening. And there's that thought, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go in my career? And that can be daunting, it can be overwhelming, because it could be the first time you're really thinking about yourself. And that can be hard. But that's what we're here to talk to you about in our podcast, about where do I start? I'm Sarah.
And I'm Emma.
And we're both careers advisors at Skills Jersey.
So you might have been asked that question, what do you do? And it can feel really uncomfortable when you're not proud of what that is that you're doing, or you feel like you've kind of lost your professional or personal identity around your career. But it's moments like that that can really give that kick, that inner voice telling us that something needs to change around this. But that question again might come, just how do I even start around this area? So this is what our podcast is about. Let's get started.
Hi, welcome back everybody to episode 2, where today we'll be talking about skills. A term you see everywhere in short supply, skills employers are looking for. In the job description, you'll see a list of skills that you need for the job. At interview, you might be asked around skills. So that's why we'll be talking to Chris Mutton from Trackers, which is the apprenticeship programme at Skills Jersey. We'll be talking to Dawn Hodgson, who's a skills development business partner at the JEC, to learn all about skills. What are employers actually looking for? Okay, Chris, just quickly for you though, in brief, could you tell us what is Trackers, please, and what is your role within Trackers?
Okay, Trackers is the island-wide apprentice program, and the purpose of Trackers is to support apprentices that are undertaking an apprenticeship.
And then about kind of your own career journey, Chris, obviously at the moment, the manager at Trackers, but when you look at your own journey and what you've done through kind of a skills lens, can you just have a think about, what skills have you developed? How have they kind of helped your own career journey to where you are?
I've had quite a number of career changes. I was really diverse actually, and I feel like I found my niche. The last 20 years I've been working in employment and working directly with people in quite a number of different roles. I should just say I'm the acting manager. I've been acting up in my role for the last 18 months. So my own career path has been really varied. I started off. I actually did an apprenticeship many moons ago in engineering, in mechanical engineering, which I stayed in for probably just shy of 10 years. But I've worked in the retail industry. I've worked for an employment company in the UK. At the age of 34, I had life changes thrust upon me, and I decided to do an access course and go off to university. Did a social policy degree at Plymouth University, and I've worked in employment pretty much since. So for the last 24 years, I've worked in roles that have been in advocacy and supporting people, sometimes people with disabilities, but people with low confidence and barriers to employment.
And you said at 17 you didn't feel ready to do a degree, but then in your 30s you felt more focused. How would you say being in the workplace for those number of years and having that routine of work, I suppose, helped you at university?
I was used to a routine, so I was able to organise myself in a more efficient way than some of the young people around me. It didn't stop me partying, which because I didn't want to be left out. But I did seek out other opportunities. I wrote for the student magazine, for example. I sought that opportunity out. I was elected as the mature student officer for the student union in University of Plymouth. I went to a national conference. I did quite a lot of extracurricular stuff, which a lot of young people don't a lot of them don't always do that, and I think that's really, really valuable, because it gives you a huge amount of extra stuff to put on your CV. I wasn't doing it because I wanted it on my CV. I did it because I thought it would be great to do. I thought it'd be exciting and different, and I like the variety. So I built up really good communication skills. I learned well how committees work, about voting. My writing took me to meet lots of different people, and I came up with ideas for the student magazine, those kind of things. So that really gave me a lot of additional skills that I was able to bring to bear in the workplace when I eventually sobered up and decided I better get a job.
That sounds great experience, though. You were interested, but you built, like you say, loads of different skills, and imagine met lots of interesting people, and
it's almost by
had a good
osmosis,
time.
really, that you do that, I think, and that's why I would encourage anyone to undertake voluntary work, or if they're studying at school or university. It's really important, and I feel sure that Dawn will back me up on this, that those extracurricular things that you do, they really add to your employability.
Time to bring you in, Dawn. Bring you into the conversation. Do you want to just kind of tell us about your own journey, your own career journey to where you are now, and thinking again about that skills perspective of perhaps skills that have helped you along the way or you've developed as you've gone on?
My journey also finished at school, having left college after 4 weeks, because that wasn't for me either. So I can understand where you're coming from, Chris. It wasn't the right time. And my career started in banking at that point. And I think in terms of a skills perspective, as well as, like you say, the technical skills of being able to do the job, I think one of the biggest things that came out of that for me was actually learning how to problem solve and how to think a little bit more creatively. So I had my very first manager would always say, "What do you think? And how and why do you think that?" And that was almost the question that used to drive me absolutely mad at the time, but I'm so grateful for now, because before I do actually, I think things through, and therefore think of alternative solutions before actually sort of doing a task. So I do think that makes me a little bit more solutions focused. Okay, there is something that needs to be dealt with. What sort of things can we do? That also led me into training at the time. So I think, again, probably the skill of creative thinking. You've got lots of different people, all completely unique, lots of different ways of learning. Their learning preferences are different, their personalities are different. Sometimes you do have to be quite creative in how you're going to get them engaged and keep them engaged. And particularly if you're actually doing some teaching where they need to be able to understand and physically do the work. So at the time it was implementation of a new computer system. So when it is technical like that, you need to have the ability to engage people in a way that's going to be best for them to learn and retain the information. After 16 years in banking, I then went in complete career change. So it must be something that happens in your 30s, perhaps. I don't know. So at 32, I took voluntary redundancy. And thought, okay, what we're going to do now? So I think the willingness to learn, try something different, be courageous. It's very much a leap of faith. And I decided at that point that I was going to retrain and become a teaching assistant. So I went back to college, and at the time I really wished there'd been a mentor around, because from the very first footstep on to go in the door on the very first day, I could have easily turned around and gone home. So it does take an incredible amount of courage to actually go back into some sort of learning when you've had a gap, and particularly I think if your experience wasn't brilliant, and that's why you left in the first place, because that's manifested itself for I don't know how long in your mind. So I'd definitely say to anyone, take the leap of faith. I retrained to be a teaching assistant. And then I would say creative thinking really came in then, because you've got so many different personalities, lots of different children of all ages.
Yeah.
And that's their absolute time to be developing their skills. From then, we moved to Jersey. So that was 15 years ago now. And I then went on to become an assessor for Highlands College in childcare because of my teaching assistant background, and then went on to retrain again, another leap of faith, and I became a tutor. So I worked at Highlands for 9 years as a tutor in childcare. Again, the way that you interact, the way that you communicate, the interpersonal skills that you need when you're with children on your hands and knees compared to what you're doing when you're teaching adults and adult learners needs quite a bit of thinking, planning, sharing ideas. At that point, I think I had some great role models. I would watch and think, I could do that, or I can do it like that, and change things. So it's important to have people surrounding you that can help you to develop, whether that's being a role model, whether that's being a coach or a mentor. And then due to the skills that I'd acquired doing the teaching, I've had now another career change and gone to Jersey Electricity to be their skills development business partner. So from childcare to Jersey Electricity is quite different.
So yeah, as an employer, we kind of have brought up about, Chris, you working with employers, and obviously every employer has different infrastructures of what they can provide and the size of them and number of staff. But as an employer, what advice would you give to like an employer or a manager, maybe, whatever size of the company, of what they can do to kind of support their staff with skill development?
Okay. I think, first of all, once upon a time, we went into a role and it was seen to be a very linear career. And I've heard a term recently that I think describes a career perfectly well, which is a squiggly career. And I think that's really important, is that if somebody thinks that they're going into a particular role and then they're hanging around and they're waiting for their manager to leave so that they can step in, then I think that's going to be demotivating, and you could take quite a long time probably in some roles to actually get there. I think for employers, it's important that if you've got people who are managing teams, that they need to have the skills themselves to open conversations, so that not just having an appraisal and where you discuss your objectives, but actually opening a conversation in general and finding out about what that person actually wants to do, to develop, and how they might support them with getting the skills necessary to be able to go a different path. So, for example, with Jersey Electricity, there's lots of different parts of the business, and it could be that an apprentice might actually start, but they might not necessarily stay in that particular role. It could be that they decide that they're going off, like you said before, Chris, about you start one thing and then you went to retail and back somewhere. That sort of a career is possible. I think it's important to have open discussions and also be prepared to guide, support, and mentor somebody to be able to get the skills gaps filled so that they're able to apply for a number of upcoming opportunities, not just necessarily waiting for that kind of next step into the boss's shoes.
Yeah.
Asking open questions, I think that's really important. That team leader level and people who are doing coaching, mentoring, they need to encourage people to solve problems for themselves. So if they actually have a habit of open questioning, that encourages those problem solving skills, that creative thinking, the new ideas, and helps people to be a little bit reflective. Like, okay, right, well, I did try that, but that didn't work. So how can I do that differently next time? Because when that opportunity comes up, I want it. So I want to be ready for it.
Just going back to something you said earlier, Dawn, you said about, you coach people to be able to describe the skill set they've got. Now, that can be really hard. People might know the skills they've got. Yeah, I know I'm good at this. I can do this. I can't say how I can do this. That's really hard, and we see people all the time struggling with that as well. What advice do you give people in how to describe the skill that they have?
I think we all have different abilities, and abilities are kind of there to be grown and nurtured. They become our capabilities. But actually, what's going along the side of that is the skills that you're learning to become capable of doing a particular role, or to become sort of more skilled at the how do I describe that? People learn by doing. They learn by first-hand experience, and I think it's that element of reflection that adds in. Okay, so if I'm thinking about what I did, that went well. Why? Did I communicate well? Did I empathize? Did I have some support to get me there? How could I offer that support to somebody else? And I think by learning from mistakes and accepting that that is an absolute crucial part of learning and developing, but by learning from your mistakes, you build in resilience. So there's another skill that kind of goes alongside. If you're becoming more resilient, you're learning from mistakes, you're thinking more creatively automatically, because you're actually thinking of different ways to do things. If something didn't go so well, how can I change that next time? Be brave, courageous, have a go, see if that works instead. I think, trying to sort of instill that growth mindset. If something didn't go well, oh, never mind. Actually, no, why didn't it go well? What was I thinking at the time? How could I have thought about it differently and therefore change the outcome? So I think a growth mindset is another great skill. But like any skill, babies can't automatically walk, and I think with any skill you've got to practice. And the more you do something, the better you get at it. And when you talked before about stages of development, Chris, I had a little chuckle to myself, because stages of development, to me, I automatically think of childcare, but actually we are going through a stage of development right until the day we pass over. It's a life journey.
We never stop developing, do we? And actually, it was great to hear you talking about about how to encourage people to develop their using reflection. It's one of the key skills that mentors use, is to reflect things back to people using, sometimes some quite some really subtle techniques, paraphrasing what people are saying back to them, and that increases a person's self-awareness and enables them to go away and to think about what about how that conversation went and why it went in a particular way. And that's and to hear you talk about resilience as well, which is something that I meant to mention. The skill of not being afraid to make a mistake, in particular when you're in an apprentice role. If you go into any role where you're learning practical skills, or where you're learning skills of any type, you really one of the most important things for you to have is the ability to have a go. If it goes wrong, why has it gone wrong? Let's reflect on that, and the confidence and the resilience to be able to come back, and that comes from having an intact self-esteem.
And I think from our perspective, when we see people, that have been knocked, they've been knocked by many things, like you say, stuff life has thrown at them. But if they are applying for roles and things and it's just not happening, and that's even just, we're saying feedback, get that feedback, get that information, and just build like you're saying, and just keep going and developing from there. It's really important just to get that when you can.
That reflection, isn't it? Key.
It's a lot about bringing other people in as well, people that you trust. People whose opinions you value. It's no good asking your worst enemy, what your good points are, is it? But it is, by the same token, you also need somebody who's going to give you honest feedback, rather than saying there. What you want is someone to say, that was really good. You could have improved on that in this way. And those are skills that not everyone has. and I think it's fair to say some employers are better at it than others.
I think you said something key there as well, because we don't often see the skills in ourselves due to experiences. We can lack confidence, self-esteem. I've got no skills. But I think talking to others, what skills do you see in me, and getting that feedback is really important as well. Yeah, absolutely. So question for you both. Maybe if we hear from you first, Chris. What skills do you think are in demand or will be important for the future world of work? In labour market skills, I suppose that's very broad, isn't it? It covers so many. But I suppose, yeah, if we turn the term soft skills, which they're not soft at all,
No,
really,
they're
are
not,
they?
are they?
But they turn soft skills like communication, empathy, listening skills.
Yeah. Certainly, as we've spoken about, and one it's a theme that that all of us actually have returned to is about communication. Listening skills are particularly important. The willingness to learn. I think Dawn mentioned my favourite word, which is curious. And if you're curious about something, you will almost certainly want to find out more about it, and you're going to be self-motivated to do something. It's a really important part of someone's development, is that they are always looking for something to do. They're looking for a chance really to develop something, or to find out about something. If you have that, I think that's one of the biggest assets that a person can have. So a sense of curiosity, a sense of interest. And to return to the theme of resilience as well, where it's okay to make mistakes as long as you use them for a learning opportunity, and not an excuse to beat yourself up, which I've done myself in the past. Sometimes people they need to grasp that mistakes are just a way of you being able to learn to do something differently and to be successful in perhaps in a slightly different way. So those are really important skills, I think, that are becoming much more recognised now. When I did my apprenticeship many moons ago, that didn't enter into the equation. That was always regarded as a little bit soft and a little bit, that you don't really do those kind of things. Whereas nowadays, I think most employers embrace that they need to have empathy, that they need to understand different challenges that people face in their lives, one way or another, and that life's a journey. We can be sailing along perfectly well one minute, and then we can be brought back down to earth with a hell of a crash in the next minute, by something that we could not have predicted. But we need support sometimes to get up the other side and then to move on. And that resilience, the development of resilience, is absolutely crucial to the future.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Over to you, Dawn.
I completely agree with Chris. Without those what's termed soft skills, however, they are totally critical in every area of life, not just necessarily the world of work. I think what will be interesting to see over the coming years is how much things have already changed in the world of work. And actually, I think those skills are going to become even more important, because that's something that machines can't do. And I think when we're thinking about the future and the future world of work, with AI and all of the sort of computer digitally driven ways of being, that unless you've got the people with the skills to program those robots, for want of a better word, how, with things like empathy, if you're in this situation, this is how you might react, you could do this. Unless you've got somebody with all of those skills behind them in the first place to actually then become, what we might see in the future as computers or robots, I think it's really important to keep hold of those nurtured skills and harness them. We need to stay human There's an awful lot of digital facing our society now, never mind in another 10, 20 years. So I think there'll always be skills. For example, we're always going to need childcare work. We're going to need hair and beauty, barbers. We're going to need people to support and encourage and understand and empathise. And we need those people to also be able to adapt to change quickly, because by heck, that's coming at a rate of knots. I think we just need to make sure that we're honing our skills that keep us human.
To keep those human skills, develop them, that resilience for the changes. Yeah, absolutely.
Lots of really interesting things that we've come up with. And I think there's loads, you kind of summarised as we've gone on lots of points, but loads of really great takeaways to think about. And I think the main one is, again, is just really don't be critical of yourself. I think me and Sarah, we see people, all ages for appointments around their career. And there's a lot of focus on what I don't have, what I can't do, how useless I am at all this. And I think a lot of people just take that angle of what they don't have, and they're really critical of what they've done. But actually, it's that stage of breaking it down, really looking back, and that reflection that we've talked about as to what you have achieved. And, especially some people we see are returning to work, coming back from perhaps raising a family and the skills that come with that. But it's really recognizing that and having that support around you, like we've spoken about, to kind of really build up your confidence around those skills. And that skills lens perspective, again, something we see is people interested in a role or perhaps career change, and the first focus is the experience. I don't have the experience in that, or oh no, I can't do that because I've never done this before. When actually, if you take that different angle, you look at the skills you've developed and you think about how transferable they are or how they can apply, it shifts that completely. And you mentioned, Chris, even through ways like volunteering, and not necessarily straight away through employment, there's ways of developing those skills that you might need to look at if you want to go into a different area.
Even if you get in the right vicinity of what it is that you want to do, you might need to go. You might need to go to St. Juan's via Gorey, in order to be able to get to where you want to be. But the important thing is that you're putting yourself out there and you're taking part. It's absolutely fundamental to finding success.
Yeah.
Enjoying the journey.
Yeah, very much so.
But being curious is key to that, isn't it? Because if you're curious, then you'll enjoy the journey because you want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The world's interconnected, and Jersey is interconnected, and you need to put yourself or you need to try and put yourself in the position where you're going to be exposed to those kind of influences, and by people who can help you as well. Jersey is a fantastic island for being able to network, and just to be in one particular position, volunteering. That person might know that person who might know that person who will put you in touch with that person. So it's a great way of working. It's why I love Jersey. One of the reasons I love Jersey.
Yeah. So yes to opportunities. That's come through today as well. Saying yes to those opportunities. And speaking to people about them, speaking to people about your interests as well.
Even if those opportunities are sometimes disguised as challenges.
Yeah, good point there, Chris. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Just being bold and brave. I know you were saying walking back into that college, you thought, you could have turned around, but you just go for it and take those leaps. Absolutely. That's a big, I think, takeaway from the discussion we've had. And however small you start with this, whether it's writing down, starting just a little plan of, the skills you might think you have, and just starting that small, or again, having those conversations, I know this whole process can feel quite daunting at different points, but I think it can be really broken into those little chunks. And at any point, as we always say, you can always come and have an appointment. If you're resident in Jersey at Skills Jersey, this might be something that's inspired you to just start thinking about those skills and have those discussions. And that's absolutely something we can talk through with you. So thank you to our guests. Thank you to Chris and Dawn. It's been lovely to have you here. It's been really kind of positive conversation, hasn't it?
Yeah,
feeling inspired. Thank you. And next episode we will be looking at barriers. I know that's something that actually came up today about people who face barriers, so we'll be talking to some guests who have faced their own throughout their career journey and the steps they took to kind of overcome them. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Where Do I Start podcast, brought to you by Skills Jersey. We hope you've enjoyed it.
We'd love to hear your thoughts about today's episode, so please feel free to contact us either through our social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram, or you can email us skillsjersey@gov.je. Thank you.